It was all a lie. My relationship with Sloane had been nothing but a cruel setup from the very beginning, a carefully staged trap orchestrated by Jake, another campus bully in our grade. He planted her in my life with one purpose: to ruin me. The day before the SATs, I saw it with my own eyes: Sloane and Jake tangled up in each other's arms in the parking lot, shameless and laughing like I never existed. My mind snapped. I bolted out of the school, my head pounding with betrayal and disbelief. I didn't see the truck until it was too late. The massive 18-wheeler came barreling toward me, horn blaring, but I was frozen in place. Then, impact. Someone shoved me. Hard. The world spun. Metal shrieked. My body crashed to the ground, tangled with someone else's. In those final moments before everything went black, I saw her face. Elena. She was the quiet girl everyone ignored, or worse, humiliated. The one who got bullied so often, she'd learned to disappear in plain sight. She once slipped me a letter, a shy, trembling confession of love. And I read it out loud in front of the whole class. They laughed. Loudly. Brutally. She never spoke to me again. That girl just saved my life. But she didn't make it. Elena was pronounced dead on the scene. I survived, but not without a cost. My spine was shattered. The rest of my life would be spent in a wheelchair, tethered to pain and silence. Years passed. At our high school reunion, I rolled into the banquet hall thinking maybe time had healed old wounds. It hadn't. They mocked me. Spat insults. Turned my broken body into a punchline. Then, someone pushed me, hard, off the third-floor balcony. I hit the ground and everything went dark. When I opened my eyes, it wasn't the hospital's ceiling I saw. It was rain. Gentle, steady, familiar. And Sloane, standing in front of me, looking impossibly young, too young, cheeks flushed, eyes shy and warm. "Ethan," she said softly. "I like you. You're sunny and kind. You're thoughtful with everything you do. You're full of good qualities. I want to be with you, forever." My breath caught. I looked around in disbelief. This wasn't the hotel. This wasn't the reunion. This wasn't the present. I looked down at my hands. My arms. My legs. No wheelchair. No scars. My limbs were whole. My body strong. My hair thick again. I was young. I pinched my cheek, hard. Pain. This was real. This was that day. The day back in senior year when Sloane first confessed to me. I wasn't dreaming. I'd come back. I'd been reborn. Sloane stood frozen in front of me, her brows slightly furrowed, eyes wide with concern as she gave a small, tentative wave. "Ethan?" she asked softly, her voice sugar-sweet, laced with concern. "Are you okay? Did I scare you with what I said?" She bit her lip, took a hesitant step closer. "I'm sorry. I knew if I didn't say it now, I might never get the chance again. You're such an amazing guy. You've always caught my eye, right from the start." Her gaze softened to a honeyed glow. Sloane looked at me like I was the only person in the world, her tenderness dripping from every word, every flutter of her lashes. But I saw right through it. I gave her a cool, indifferent glance, and a bitter smile curled in my chest. That fake sweetness, that harmless, innocent facade, was exactly how she fooled me last time. Not again. God gave me a second chance, and this time, I wasn't going to let her, or Jake, get away with what they did. They'd pay. 100 times over. She blinked nervously at my silence, clearly flustered now. "Ethan, say something. You're scaring me. Are you feeling okay? Are you sick or something?" I stared straight through her. I knew that worried expression. I'd seen it before. It wasn't fear for me. It was fear that I might reject her little confession, that Jake's scheme might fall apart. She looked like a soft, delicate flower. But inside? She was venom wrapped in silk. Sloane should have been on a movie set, not a high school hallway. As she clung gently to my sleeve, a few classmates nearby slowed their steps, watching the scene unfold with nosy curiosity. "Dude, what are you waiting for?" someone called out with a grin. "Sloane just confessed to you. You lucky bastard. Half the guys in school are obsessed with her, and she picks you?" Sloane lowered her head, cheeks flushed with just the right shade of pink, a smile tugging at her lips, bashful, sweet, perfectly rehearsed. She stood there like the picture-perfect girl next door, waiting quietly, as though handing her heart to someone she truly adored. I looked her dead in the eye. And shut it down. "I don't need to think about it," I said calmly. "I don't like you." The air around us dropped. The claps and cheers from the small crowd stuttered, then died out in a wave of awkward silence. All eyes turned to me like I'd just spoken in tongues. Was I joking? This was Sloane. Sloane, the girl every guy fantasized about. The untouchable queen of the senior class. "Why?" she whispered, stunned. Her big, luminous eyes welled up with tears, the shock hitting her like a slap. "There's not a single guy in school who doesn't like me. I guess I'm the exception," I said quietly. Then I turned and walked away. Never once looking back. Sloane didn't take rejection well. Especially not in public. Not when it meant Jake's carefully laid plan had just unraveled. Not when her own pride, her spotless reputation as the school's untouchable goddess, was suddenly smeared in front of an entire audience. She wasn't going to let it end like that. What followed was a campaign of relentless, sugary warfare. She started bringing me breakfast every morning, smoothies, bagels, artisanal coffee. Between classes, she'd happen to show up with a cold drink, her smile picture perfect. Every day, I'd open my desk to find a new love letter tucked inside, surrounded by carefully curated snacks, cookies, chips, candy bars, all laced with cartoon hearts and glittery pink notes. The other guys in class looked at me with open jealousy. Some even whistled. To them, I was a legend. The only guy who'd ever turned Sloane down, and who still managed to resist her non-stop pursuit like some immovable force of nature. They were sure it was only a matter of time before I gave in. But they didn't know what I knew. Beneath Sloane's dazzling smile and flawless beauty was a heart as cold as steel. The more desperately she chased me, the more clearly I saw it, not affection, but calculation. Not longing, but loyalty, to Jake. The more effort she put in, the more I realized how badly she needed me to play along. Valentine's Day came. She upped her game. A box of handmade chocolates, ribbon-tied, still warm from her hands. She placed it on my desk with theatrical sweetness, her voice ringing through the classroom. "Ethan," she said brightly, "I made these just for you. You have to try them." I didn't even glance at the box. I grabbed it and dropped it into the paper bag beside my desk, already overflowing with the gifts she'd tried to woo me with. "Sloane," I said flatly, "this isn't a trash can. Please take your garbage with you. And for the record, I hate sweets." Gasps rippled through the classroom. She stood frozen, blinking in disbelief, as I lifted the entire bulging bag and handed it back to her, everything she'd ever given me, untouched. It landed in her hands like a slap. Without sparing her another glance, I stood up and walked across the room, straight to Elena. She was buried in a textbook, as usual, invisible to everyone but me. I gently placed a bottle of Coke in front of her. "What do you feel like for lunch?" I asked, smiling. "My treat." Elena looked up, startled, pointing a finger at her chest like I'd spoken to the wrong person. Me? She whispered. You're asking me to lunch? I nodded sincerely. Would you give me a chance? Her cheeks flushed a soft, rosy red. She didn't hesitate. Yes. She stood up, grabbed her backpack, and walked out with me, her eyes wide with something between wonder and disbelief. Behind us, Sloane stood frozen, her entire face draining of color, then flooding red again, this time with fury. Her fists clenched at her sides as a few students stared in awkward silence. What the hell are you looking at? She snapped, her voice sharp and venomous. Keep staring and I'll rip your eyeballs out. With a snarl, she shoved the paper bag of rejected snacks into the trash and stormed out of the room. I heard her footsteps echo down the hall, and all I felt was a bitter satisfaction rising in my chest. There it is. The mask was slipping. Let's see how long it takes for the real Sloane to show her face to the whole damn world. After that day, I started treating Elena with the care she'd never known. I asked if she'd eaten, walked her to class, made sure she was never alone in the halls. I didn't hide it. I wanted her to feel seen, for once in her life. Sloane noticed. And she didn't like it one bit. One afternoon, right after the final bell, she cornered Elena in a quiet hallway just past the stairwell. You need to back off, bitch, she hissed, eyes flashing. Stay away from Ethan, or I swear, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. I am not chasing him, Elena stammered, cheeks burning red. I like him. Sloane's eyes narrowed. Still running that mouth, huh? Say that again and I'll beat the crap out of you right here. She raised her hand, ready to slap Elena across the face. But I was already there. I'd seen her pull Elena aside and my gut told me something was off. So I'd followed, staying just far enough to hear everything. Hey! I barked, stepping out from behind the lockers. What the hell do you think you're doing? Sloane froze. Then, without missing a beat, she grabbed Elena's wrist and threw herself backward like she'd been shoved. Her ankle twisted as she collapsed onto the floor, letting out a dramatic cry. Ow! Ethan, why did you push me? That hurt so bad. She looked up at me, eyes glossy, voice trembling, like the victim in a schoolyard tragedy. I didn't push her. Elena gasped. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. Her hands flew up defensively. I swear, I didn't touch her. Sloane burst into phony tears, choking out her lines like a seasoned actress. She's jealous because you like me. She said if I didn't leave you alone, she'd get someone to kill me, Ethan. I'm scared, I'm so scared. I stared at her, deadpan. Sloane, I said coldly, can you drop the act already? She blinked. Once. Twice. You've been bullying Elena with your little crew since sophomore year. Don't act like she's got the power to scare you. You're not the victim here, you never were. Her fake tears stopped. Panic flared in her eyes as she tried to backpedal. I didn't, that's not. I cut her off by tossing a thick envelope onto the floor in front of her. Photos spilled out. All of them captured moments she thought no one would ever see, shoving Elena in the hallway, dumping water on her textbooks, whispering threats with a smile that never reached her eyes. I had taken them all. Back when I was too much of a coward to do anything about it. Well, not anymore. If you go near Elena again, I said, my voice low and sharp, I'll take these straight to the principal. You know exactly what that means. Sloane stared at the photos in horror, lips trembling. I turned and gently took Elena's hand. Come on, I whispered. We walked away together. Behind us, Sloane's voice cracked with fury. Ethan. You won't date me, but you'll run off with her? That loser? You're not even a real man. I felt Elena flinch. Tears welled in her eyes, but I held her hand tighter. You're safe now, I said softly. I've got you. And this time, I meant it. Elena looked at me with soft, grateful eyes, her voice gentle, almost formal. Thank you, Ethan. And I'm sorry. I've just been causing you trouble. I raised a hand and carefully wiped away the tear still clinging to the corner of her eye. No, Elena, I said quietly. I'm the one who should be apologizing. For everything. I swallowed, guilt tightening my throat. I was cruel. I trampled your feelings and treated your kindness like it meant nothing. If there's any way I can make it up to you, please. Let me try. For a moment, neither of us spoke. All I could think about was how close I'd come to never seeing this, her eyes, her warmth, this version of reality where I got a second chance. I'd wasted so much time chasing Sloane's lies, blind to the truth standing right in front of me. Elena's cheeks flushed, and she dipped her head with a shy smile. I'd like that, she whispered. I'd really like that. I took her hands gently in mine, meeting her gaze with every ounce of sincerity I had. No one's ever going to hurt you again, I said. Not while I'm around. That was the day everything changed. Elena and I started dating officially. We walked to class together, shared lunch in the courtyard, talked late into the evening. People noticed. They always notice happiness. For the first time, Elena let herself shine. She started taking care of her appearance, not out of vanity, but out of self-respect. Her hair was always tied in a high ponytail now, swaying like a banner when she walked. Her smile lit up her whole face, her shoulders no longer hunched in fear. She looked like someone reborn. A girl who had once blended into the background was suddenly impossible to ignore, bright and radiant like a beam of sunlight. And people did notice. Wait, is that Elena? Someone whispered in the hall. No way. She's gorgeous. She's even prettier than Sloane now. I didn't miss the look on Sloane's face when she heard that. Her expression curdled with rage, her jaw tight, her eyes burning with pure hatred. She turned and stormed off like a thundercloud ready to burst. Yeah, she wasn't going to let this slide. Not someone like her. Later that day, I found Elena outside the library and pulled her aside. Hey, I said, lowering my voice, be careful around Sloane. Elena tilted her head, confused. She's not done, I said simply. So just, keep your distance, okay? She nodded slowly, the light in her eyes dimming just slightly. But I squeezed her hand, firm and steady. I won't let anything happen to you. No sooner had I warned Elena to be careful, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at the screen. Sloane, she murmured, brows pinching slightly. Why would she be calling me? Her fingers hovered over the screen, hesitation flickering in her eyes. But after a moment, her kindness won out, like it always did, and she answered. Hi, Elena, came Sloane's voice, sweet and contrite. I just wanted to call and apologize for what happened the other day. I'm really sorry. The tone was soft. Polite. Drenched in guilt. Elena blinked in surprise. The apology wasn't what she'd expected, but it sounded sincere. It's okay, she said softly. I know you didn't mean it. Oh my God, you're so nice, Sloane gushed, voice bubbling with relief. You're amazing, seriously. From now on, you're my best friend, okay? Before Elena could respond, Sloane went on, her tone eager now. Listen, my birthday party's this Sunday. I really want you to come. I want to make things right, properly. Please say yes. Give me a chance to fix this. Elena glanced at me. I was already shaking my head. My grip on her hand tightened. Don't go. Sloane might smile like a saint, but I knew better. I'd seen the venom behind those eyes. The way she played people like chess pieces. The way she cozied up to Jake, of all people. But Elena, ever the optimist, smiled gently and squeezed my hand back. "Ethan," she said, "I appreciate you worrying about me. I really do. But I don't believe anyone's born evil. If she's truly sorry, maybe she deserves a second chance." I opened my mouth to protest, but there was no stopping her when she made up her mind. So I went with her. If Sloane was planning something, I wanted to be there to see it fall apart. The night of the party, Elena walked into the room in a simple white dress, and the entire room went still. She was breathtaking. Her features were delicate but defined, her smile radiant, her posture poised. Gone was the girl who used to shrink into corners and avoid eye contact. This was someone new. Someone glowing. A quiet kind of elegance followed her with every step. The whispers started immediately. "Is that Elena? She's beautiful. Honestly, she makes Sloane look kinda average." I saw the flicker in Sloane's eyes the moment she spotted Elena. Rage. Pure, simmering, territorial rage. But within a blink, it was gone, tucked behind a dazzling smile as she glided across the room, a glass of sparkling apple cider in hand. "Elena," she chirped, looping an arm around her shoulders like they were lifelong besties. "You look amazing tonight." Then she turned to the crowd, holding her glass high. "Everyone, listen up," she called cheerfully. "This is Elena, my best friend now, got it? Tonight's my birthday, and I want all of you to treat her like gold. If anyone messes with her, they'll have to answer to me first." The room clapped and laughed, raising their cups. Elena blushed, touched by the gesture. She turned to Sloane and took her hand. "Thank you," she said shyly. Sloane smiled sweetly, the picture of grace and warmth. But I saw it, just for a split second. The way her fingers tightened. The way her jaw clenched behind that smile. This wasn't over. Not even close. Almost instantly, a small circle of guys surrounded Elena, drinks in hand, their eyes lit with admiration and surprise. One by one, they toasted her, some joking, some downright smitten, and she clinked glasses with them, smiling more brightly than I'd ever seen. And when she looked over at me, cheeks flushed with excitement, her eyes sparkled with something pure, joy. Real, unfiltered joy. She had once dreamed of this, to laugh and chat with her classmates, to belong, to be seen. And tonight, that dream had finally come true. I couldn't stop smiling. But Sloane noticed. Of course she did. She zeroed in on me like a hawk, weaving through the crowd with 2 glasses of sparkling mocktails and a polished smile glued to her face. "Ethan," she said sweetly, stopping in front of me. "I'm really glad you came tonight." She held out one of the drinks to me, her voice dropping into something more personal. "No matter when, if you ever want to be with me, just say the word. I won't hesitate." I didn't even look at her. My eyes stayed on Elena, laughing, glowing, alive. Sloane's smile twitched. She stomped her heel into the ground with frustration and suddenly stepped right into my path, blocking my view. "I'm being serious, Ethan," she said, her tone sharper now. "I've put everything out there. Do you really not feel anything for me?" I frowned and pushed past her, irritation bubbling in my chest. "Can you not?" I snapped. "I have a girlfriend." Her expression shifted, just for a moment. A scoff, laced with bitterness. "Elena? That's who you're calling your girlfriend now?" She laughed, sharp and mean. "Fine. If you're really done with me, then come out to the balcony. One last talk. If not, I swear I'll make a scene right here, and you'll never get rid of me." I exhaled hard. I was sick of this. So I followed her outside. The balcony air was crisp and cold. Sloane stood there in her sleeveless party dress, arms bare, shivering slightly, but still trying to look graceful. She took a step closer. Then another. Her voice softened, her eyes suddenly brimming with emotion. "I envy Elena," she murmured. "I tried everything to win you over. Everything. And she just shows up and you fall for her?" I let out a cold laugh and stared her dead in the eye. "Sloane, aren't you tired of pretending? I see through you. I've always seen through you." She flinched, but only for a second. Then she blinked, tilting her head, voice syrupy again. "What about her, huh? Elena? She's a pathetic nobody from some nowhere town. A coward who doesn't even know how to stand up for herself. She's a loser, Ethan." "Shut your mouth." The words tore out of me before I could stop them, louder, sharper than I intended. Sloane recoiled. Just a flicker of fear passed over her face. And then, just as quickly, it vanished, replaced by that familiar mask of hurt innocence. The kind of look that made people think she was the one who'd been wronged. But this time, I wasn't falling for it. Not anymore. "I chose Elena," I said, staring straight into Sloane's eyes, "because she's kind. Because she's real. That's something you'll never understand." I took a step back. "Don't think I haven't figured you out. You've been hanging around Jake like you're glued to his side. What was the plan, huh? He sent you after me? Wanted you to drag me down with him?" Sloane's face went pale. She laughed nervously, waving her hands like she could erase the truth with a gesture. No, Ethan, that's not what this is. I swear, I'd never, Jake and I, we're not." "Save it," I snapped, cutting her off with a wave of my hand. "I'm done listening." I turned to leave, but she wasn't finished. Desperation twisted across her face as she lunged forward, grabbing a fistful of my collar. In one sudden motion, she yanked the chain from my neck, then rose on her toes. And kissed me. Hard. I froze, shocked. Just then, from beyond the balcony doors, I heard the unmistakable sound of shattering glass. I spun toward it, heart plummeting. There she was. Elena. Her eyes were wide and glassy with tears, her expression one of heartbreak and devastation. She didn't say a word. She just ran. "Elena!" I shouted. I shoved Sloane off me, stunned by the insanity of what just happened. "What the hell is wrong with you?" She collapsed to the ground, still clutching the chain in her fist, sobbing loud enough for the whole party to hear. "Ethan," she wailed. "You have to take responsibility for this. You touched me, how can you just walk away now? What am I supposed to do with the rest of my life?" People had begun gathering at the balcony doors. Whispers. Stares. Judgment. Sloane waved frantically toward them, her voice rising with urgency. "You all saw it, didn't you?" Ethan tried to force himself on me, I couldn't stop him. I had no choice. She wrapped her arms around my waist, holding on like a madwoman, screaming louder with every word. I tried to pull away, but she clawed at my shirt like a drowning person clinging to driftwood. The crowd started murmuring. People believe what they see. And Sloane? She looked like a helpless victim. Elena was nowhere in sight. I saw the redness in her eyes, the raw betrayal, just before she turned away. She didn't yell. She didn't cry out. She just walked. Shoulders trembling. Face pale. I tried to go after her. "Elena. Wait, it's not what you think. I swear to God, I didn't kiss her. She forced it, I don't feel anything for her." But Sloane shrieked and pulled me back, clinging tighter, louder than ever. "How can you say that after what just happened? Everyone saw you. They saw what you did." I could barely breathe. By the time I broke free, Elena was already gone. And then I saw him. Jake. Leaning against his car, arms folded, watching it all unfold with a smug smile. He walked up to Elena like a knight offering escape, opened the door, and she got in. And just like that, they were gone. A setup. All of it. If anything happened to her now. If Jake used her to get to me again. I'd never forgive myself. Not for this. Not for losing her twice. I took a deep breath, then shoved Sloane off me. Let go, I said, voice low and sharp. Her eyes widened with fury. But just as she lunged toward me again, something in my gaze made her freeze mid-step. I wasn't bluffing anymore. Sloane, I said, staring her down, we both know exactly what that stunt on the balcony was. Don't test me. My voice dropped to a warning growl. I'm done playing nice. I've reached my limit. Now get out of my face. She flinched, caught off guard by the edge in my tone. For once, she didn't push back. Instead, she hung back near the wall, tears welling in her eyes again, putting on the same pathetic performance as before. But I love you, she whimpered. I've always loved you. How could you be so cruel to me? I can change. Just tell me what you want, Ethan, I'll be whatever you need. Don't leave me like this. Please, don't leave me alone. A few bystanders stepped in, clueless about what had really happened. Don't cry, Sloane, one of them murmured. He's not worth it. Guys like that are all the same. Seriously, another one added, glaring at me. Let her go. She deserves better. I could see the smug glint return to Sloane's eyes as she glanced at me from beneath her lashes, half challenge, half triumph. But I didn't respond. I didn't have time to waste on her games. Without a word, I pulled out my phone and called an Uber, tracking Elena's last location like a man possessed. I wasn't going to lose her. Not like this. 10 minutes later, I spotted them. Jake and Elena were stepping into an elevator at the hotel downtown. He had her by the wrist, dragging her along with a forced smile. She looked panicked, eyes darting, steps reluctant, hands pressing weakly against his chest as if trying to push him away. They disappeared behind the elevator doors. I ran. I barely waited for the floor to stop before charging down the hallway. I didn't even knock when I found the room, I just kicked the door open and stormed inside. Jake! I barked. Let her go. I know exactly what the hell you're doing. The air went dead still. Jake turned slowly, his face a perfect mask of indifference. Excuse me, he said, raising a brow. This is none of your business. This is between me and Elena. I'm making it my business, I shot back, stepping between them and shielding her with my body. She doesn't want to be here. She doesn't need whatever version of help you're offering. You've got a problem with me? Bring it to me. A charged silence fell. Then the shouting started. Jake snapped, stepping forward, jaw clenched. I didn't budge. We went toe to toe, voices rising, every word dripping with challenge and buried history. It felt like we were 2 seconds from throwing punches. But I ended it. One line. Flat and cold. Jake, I said, locking eyes with him, you really think that fake golden boy persona is going to protect you forever? I know who you are underneath all that. Elena was behind me now, clutching my sleeve with trembling fingers. I felt the fear in her hands, but also the trust. Jake's mouth curled into a bitter smile. He leaned in just close enough to hiss between his teeth. Fine, Ethan. You want to play the hero? Be my guest. But this isn't over. I didn't answer. I turned and walked out, Elena close by my side, never letting go of my arm. And this time? I didn't look back. A cold breeze swept through the hallway as we left the hotel, its sharp chill brushing against our skin like a reset button. Only then did Elena's breathing begin to slow. She looked up at me, her eyes glassy with tears, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I'm sorry, Ethan. If it weren't for me, you wouldn't be caught in this mess with Jake." I gently shook my head and reached up to tuck a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "No," I said. "Don't ever think that. This has nothing to do with you. Jake's had it out for me for a long time." Jake, with his movie star face and perfect grades, was the school's golden boy, untouchable, admired, practically worshipped. He knew how to charm the teachers, lead the sports teams, and play the part of the noble upperclassman. But I knew better. Behind that flawless facade was a venomous snake. One who smiled for the crowd while sharpening knives behind their backs. Sloane had just been another pawn, someone eager to please him, even if it meant faking an entire relationship with me. I let out a quiet sigh, then reached over and wiped the tears from the corners of Elena's eyes. "Don't be afraid," I murmured. "As long as I'm here, no one's going to hurt you." Elena took a deep breath, her shoulders lifting, then lowering, like she was finally exhaling a fear she'd carried for far too long. Her voice trembled, but her words came steady. "Ethan, from today on, no matter what anyone says, I'll believe you. Always." It was quiet for a second. And then I nodded. Because I knew what that meant. She'd chosen to stand beside me. Fully, finally, completely. The next morning, I picked up breakfast before heading over to her dorm. Just something simple, coffee, fresh bagels, a note tucked in the bag. But when I reached her building, I stopped in my tracks. Elena was already outside. Dressed. Alert. Holding something tightly in her hand. Her expression was tense, almost panicked. She didn't see me. She turned and walked away quickly, disappearing around the corner. Concern immediately flared in my chest. I tossed the breakfast into my bag and followed, staying back just enough to avoid being seen. She was headed toward the school parking lot, the old one behind the gym, where nobody really went this early in the morning. And then I saw him. Jake. He was already waiting, leaning against the hood of his car like he'd been expecting her. Casual, cocky, dangerous. I froze for a moment. Not because I doubted Elena. But because I knew Jake. So I crept closer, keeping out of sight. I had to know what he was up to. "So," Elena said, her voice calm but edged with steel. "You called me here. What do you want?" Jake scoffed, eyeing her with a twisted smirk. "What, you regretting last night?" he sneered. "Didn't get to finish what we started?" Elena's expression changed instantly. The blood drained from her face. Her fingers clenched at her sides. And I could see it, rage, disgust, and something else, something dangerous, burning just beneath the surface. Elena was shaking, with rage, with disgust, but the words caught in her throat. She stared Jake down, trembling with fury. "Don't take people for idiots," she finally snapped, her voice sharp. "Everything you've done, every twisted game, it's obvious you're targeting Ethan." She took a step forward, her hands clenched at her sides. "I'm warning you, Jake. Stay away from him. If you don't, I'll go to the police." Jake didn't flinch. In fact, he laughed. Slow. Sarcastic. Unimpressed. "Oh," he drawled, eyes glinting with mockery. "You're going to sue me now?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice with smug amusement. "I'd love to see how you plan to do that." His arrogance only made Elena's fury boil hotter, but before she could speak again, Jake moved fast. He grabbed her by the chin, forcing her face upward. The smirk on his lips was venomous. That was it. I started moving. Ready to rip him off her. But Elena got there first. She wrenched herself free, glaring daggers at him. "Don't touch me," she spat. Ever again. Then her voice rose, firm, fearless. You think I'm scared of you? I already have the hotel security footage from that night. The one where you dragged me upstairs. Jake's smirk froze. If you lay so much as a finger on Ethan again, I'll hand it over to the police, and I'll charge you with attempted sexual assault. Silence. The kind that buzzes in your ears. Jake's eyes narrowed. The smugness evaporated. Now he was just angry. He clenched his jaw, stepping back slowly as he glared at her. Fine, he muttered. You've got guts. His voice dropped to a hiss. Don't worry. I won't go near him. But you better pray he never ends up in my way again, because if he does, I won't be so nice. Elena stared him down coldly, her voice low and scathing. You're a coward, Jake. You're nothing like Ethan. You don't even belong in the same sentence as him. Something in that last line snapped him. Jake's face contorted, and with a snarl, he raised his hand, rage boiling over, palm aimed straight for her face. Elena flinched, her eyes widening. But the blow never landed. Instead, she opened her eyes, and saw me. Standing between them. My hand locked around Jake's wrist. My eyes on hers. Ethan, she whispered, voice trembling, eyes suddenly full of tears. Her chest rose and fell, emotions crashing over her, shock, relief, gratitude. In her eyes, I saw everything. Not just this moment. But the weight of all the others. The unspoken truth, in every version of our lives, she had always stood by me. And now, it was my turn. I turned slowly to Jake. His face was twisted with fury, nostrils flaring. But I didn't care. I didn't flinch. Because I wasn't letting go. Not this time. Jake yanked his arm free from my grip, seething. His voice was low, bitter, mocking. Oh, I get it now. You two are working together. This whole thing's a setup, huh? I stared at him, expression blank but eyes cold. No, Jake, I said. Not everyone lies and manipulates to get what they want. You're the only one pathetic enough to think force and mind games make you powerful. I didn't wait for a response. I turned, reached for Elena's hand, and walked away. Let him stand there in his manufactured anger. We were done with it. Later, after helping clean up the classroom in silence, I glanced at Elena and offered to walk her home. She hesitated, just a second, before nodding. Her cheeks were still slightly flushed from the chaos of the day. We walked side by side into the softening dusk. I was still trying to find the right words to ease the quiet tension between us when she spoke first, her voice warm and sincere. Thank you for today, Ethan. I smiled gently. Elena, it's me who should thank you. You stood up for me, publicly. Risked everything. I feel guilty for that. Her eyes shimmered, and she shook her head. You don't have to feel guilty, she said. I did it because I wanted to. Because I care about you. A beat passed. Her gaze softened even more. Ethan. I like you. I always have. So whatever I do for you, it's never a burden. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then I reached for her hand again, softly, deliberately. I let out a quiet laugh and looked into her eyes. I know, I said. I've always known. Which is why I'm asking now, Elena, would you be my girlfriend? She didn't hesitate. Tears welled in her eyes, but her smile was radiant as she nodded. Yes. Yes, I will. From that day on, Elena and I were inseparable. There was a lightness to our days now, shared jokes, late-night texts, walking through school with fingers intertwined. We became that couple, happy, steady, undeniably close. And every time we crossed paths with Sloane, I could feel her eyes burning into us. Resentful. Bitter. I wasn't sure whether she was angry about failing whatever mission Jake had assigned her, or just jealous that Elena now had something real. Something she never could manufacture with manipulation. One afternoon, she made her move. Elena and I were talking outside the school gate when Sloane marched over, deliberately stepping between us. With a dramatic flourish, she yanked a necklace from around her neck and held it up like a trophy. It was a silver chain, one I recognized. One I had given her. But not for the reason she wanted to pretend. "Elena," Sloane said, voice loud and pointed, "take a good look at this." Her grin was vicious, eyes flashing with theatrical delight. This was a gift from Ethan. "That's right, he gave it to me. He's always loved me," she added, turning to the growing crowd. "The only reason he didn't say yes was because I'm me, Sloane. I'm too wanted. Too admired." He felt intimidated. "And you?" She sneered at Elena. "You're just the replacement." The words hung in the air like poison. Elena blinked, stunned. And inside me, a ripple of unease stirred. Not because Sloane's story was true, but because I knew how lies, spoken confidently enough, had a way of staining even the purest trust. That necklace. It was the same one Sloane had yanked from my neck during her stunt on the balcony. I hadn't given it to her. It wasn't a gift. It was stolen. But now, she was parading it like some sacred token. I immediately stepped forward, alarm flaring in my chest. "Elena, don't listen to her," I said, hands raised, voice urgent. "That necklace, she ripped it off me. I never gave it to her." But my denial only seemed to fuel Sloane further. She stepped right into my space, big glassy eyes brimming with crocodile tears, her voice thick with emotion as she clung to my hand. "Ethan, why are you lying to yourself?" she whimpered. "I know you think you're not good enough for me. But I never cared about that. I've never once looked down on you." Her fingers tightened. "You don't have to pretend anymore. Just be with me. Stop fighting it." I pulled my hand back, flustered. This was spiraling, and I was terrified that Elena might misread it again. I turned to explain, but she got there first. With fire in her eyes, Elena stepped forward and snatched Sloane's hand away from mine. Her voice was icy, sharp as broken glass. "Sloane," she said, "how long do you plan to keep this act going? I don't believe a word you're saying. Not unless Ethan tells me himself." She glanced at me, eyes steady and full of conviction. "After what you pulled last time, I made myself a promise, I'd never doubt the man I love again." My breath caught. And without even thinking, I reached out and took her hand. Held it tight. Looked her right in the eyes. "I've never lied to you," I said. "Not now, not ever. And the only woman I've ever loved, truly, is you, Elena." I turned back toward Sloane, my voice dropping like a hammer. "And as for the snakes who keep trying to slither between us, you'd better disappear. While you still can." My tone left no room for doubt. The mask finally cracked. Sloane's face twisted into something dark, hatred, jealousy, humiliation all crashing together in her eyes. She forced a laugh. It came out bitter and thin. "Fine," she spat. "But you said it, Ethan. I hope, for your sake, you never live to regret it." I didn't even blink. I turned, still holding Elena's hand, and walked away, fast, focused, without looking back. Because for the first time in this whole twisted mess, the past wasn't chasing us anymore. We were moving forward. Together. Sloane moved fast. Yesterday, she was practically shouting her love for me from the rooftops, clinging to me like she was auditioning for a public engagement. Today? She showed up to school holding hands with Jake. The pair walked in like royalty, heads high, eyes scanning the crowd for applause. The new power couple. And as if that wasn't enough, she started spreading rumors. According to her, I'd been with her all along, we were supposedly in a long-term, secret relationship. And now, after I'd cheated on her with Elena, she'd finally had enough and decided to move on, with Jake, the true gentleman who loved her unconditionally. It was a circus. I wanted to stand up and shut it all down. Tell everyone the truth. Scream it, if I had to. But Elena stopped me. She gently tugged on my sleeve and shook her head. Gossip doesn't care about the truth, she said softly. That's what Sloane's counting on. The more you try to explain, the guiltier you'll look. I clenched my jaw, still furious. Sloane is a venomous liar, I muttered. She'll say anything to make herself look good. But Elena simply reached for my hand and gave it a soft squeeze. Let it go, Ethan. Don't fall into the trap of trying to prove yourself. That's exactly what she wants, to drag you into a mess. Let people talk. What we do now matters more than what they say. I looked at her, really looked. So calm. So grounded. So clear-eyed in the middle of the storm. And in that moment, I found myself admiring her even more. From that day on, Elena and I buried ourselves in books. We spent hours in the library, heads bent over SAT practice sheets, trading flashcards, challenging each other with timed quizzes. We set a goal: get into the same university. Leave this chaos behind, together. Classmates started noticing. They whispered when we passed by, but the tone had changed. They weren't mocking us anymore. Now, it was envy. They're like the perfect couple, someone murmured once. Straight out of a storybook. And I guess, in a way, we were. While we rose quietly, Sloane started to fade. First, it was a few missed classes. Then she stopped showing up for club meetings. When the district-wide SAT mock exam came, she was nowhere to be found. And then she vanished. Just like that, no more Sloane in the halls, in the classrooms, on campus at all. People started asking questions. One afternoon, a classmate tapped me on the shoulder, lowering his voice. Hey, any idea what happened to Sloane? I didn't even look up from my notes. Instead, I reached for Elena's hand and laced my fingers through hers, then replied calmly. I don't know anything about her. And if you're asking me, you're asking the wrong person. The guy blinked, caught off guard, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, no, I get it, sorry, man. Wasn't trying to start anything. Just curious. Elena let out a slow breath and offered him a faint smile. That's her life, she said. It has nothing to do with us. And it was true. The less we thought about her, the more peaceful things became. Still, whispers about Sloane didn't stop. If anything, her absence made her more mysterious, more talked about. But her grades? They told a different story. They were tanking. Even the teachers were starting to wonder if she'd come back at all. As the SATs crept closer, Elena and I threw ourselves into prep like our futures depended on it, because they did. We spent long nights buried in test books, quizzing each other under library lamps until our eyes burned. Every spare moment was dedicated to studying. There was no space left for distractions. One weekend, we took the train downtown to pick up a new set of practice books from the city bookstore. As we stepped out, crossing the street toward a coffee shop, we froze. Right there on the sidewalk, plain as day, were Sloane and Jake. She had her arm looped through his, her head resting on his shoulder. They were kissing, openly, shamelessly, like they wanted the whole world to see. People passing by glanced, then looked away. Some students from school whispered nearby. I didn't say a word. Neither did Elena. We just stood still for a moment, our eyes meeting. No anger. No sadness. Just quiet understanding. Sloane had made her choice. And once someone chooses to drown in illusion, no lifeline in the world can save them. A few weeks later, just 1 month before the SAT, Sloane's father showed up at our school. I saw him waiting just outside the campus gate, standing stiffly by the fence like he didn't quite know whether he was allowed to be there. He looked out of place, early 50s, hair streaked with gray, hands rough and calloused, like they'd spent a lifetime gripping tools. His shirt was a faded work uniform, the sleeves worn thin, patched at the elbows. He didn't fit into this polished academic world. But his eyes scanned the crowd with quiet hope. I approached cautiously. "Mr. Whitaker?" I asked. "Are you looking for me?" He looked up, startled. Then he scratched his head, voice low and apologetic. "Yeah. Ethan. That's you, right?" He glanced around, like he was afraid someone might hear. "You've always been at the top of the grade. Everyone says you're the best." He paused, clearly struggling with the next part. "I know it's a lot to ask, but could you help Sloane? With her studying, I mean. SAT's coming up fast, and if she doesn't get her act together, well, college might not even be an option." He gave a weak chuckle. "She's a smart girl. She gets lost sometimes." I didn't speak. What could I say? The Sloane I knew now wasn't preparing for her future. She was living in Jake's shadow, orbiting his world, untethered from any goal that didn't begin and end with him. She didn't need tutoring. She needed a reason to care. And I couldn't give that to her. "I'm sorry, Mr. Whitaker," I said, voice steady but firm. "You're right. The SAT's important. But everyone has to take responsibility for their own future. Including Sloane. I wish I could help, but I'm focused on my own prep now." He blinked, and for a moment, I saw it, a flicker of defeat in his eyes. But he nodded anyway, managing a polite smile. No, I get it. You've got your own path. I respect that." He sighed and turned to leave, then stopped. "It's just, that score. It changes everything for a kid like her." His voice trailed off. And then, just as he started to walk away, his phone rang. The ringtone was shrill and urgent, slicing through the quiet morning air. The moment Mr. Whitaker picked up the call, I saw the blood drain from his face. His lips parted in stunned silence. "Sloane," he said, voice trembling. What did you say? You were in a car accident? Your right arm's broken?" He staggered back a step. Okay, sweetheart, don't be scared," he said quickly, trying to steady his voice. "Daddy's coming. I'm on my way to the hospital right now." He didn't wait for my response. He hung up, turned on his heel, and took off in a clumsy run, his worn work boots barely holding traction on the sidewalk. Twice, he nearly tripped. His legs didn't seem built for this kind of urgency anymore. His back was hunched, his arms swinging out too far, like he was fighting both time and gravity. I stood there, watching the man disappear down the street, heart twisting. To have a daughter like Sloane was a burden no father deserved. The news spread fast. Sloane had broken her arm, her right arm, after a motorcycle crash out by the edge of town. Apparently, she'd been riding with Jake through some winding mountain roads. He'd lost control. They both went down hard. Jake walked away with barely a scratch. Sloane wasn't so lucky. Her right arm was fractured clean through, locked in a thick white cast. Word was she couldn't even grip a pen. After that, Sloane vanished from campus entirely. No one saw her in class. Her name didn't show up on the roll. It was like she dropped out without saying goodbye. But her father hadn't disappeared. He was back on campus within days, circles under his eyes, shoulders heavier, voice more tired. When I passed him outside the school office, he stopped me again, this time quieter, more humbled. "Ethan," he said, I know you can't tutor her. I understand." He forced a smile. "But, if you could just copy your class notes for her. Maybe she can review them at home." I nodded. "Of course, Mr. Whitaker. I'll get them to you tomorrow." That was the least I could do. The next morning, I dropped by the corner copy shop next to school. As I stepped in, something outside the window caught my eye. A flash of movement, two familiar figures slipping out of the tiny motel next door. I looked again. Jake. And Sloane. Her arms still in a cast, cradled like an afterthought. Her head tucked against his shoulder, smile dreamy, cheeks flushed. Jake wrapped an arm around her waist and tilted her chin up, grinning. "You get the money?" he asked, like it was just another line in a rehearsed play. Sloane nodded eagerly, handing over a small wad of cash. "My dad's sending $2,000 tonight," she said softly. "That'll cover the rest of the week." Jake snorted. $2,000 won't cut it. We'll need at least 5. Talk to him again." Sloane didn't even blink. "Okay," she said. "I'll figure something out." Her cast knocked against his arm, but she didn't care. She was smiling. Beaming, even. Like this was love. Like this was worth it. I stared, sickened. Mr. Whitaker was breaking his back to take care of her, scraping together hospital bills, begging strangers for academic help, and she was out here playing house with the guy who nearly got her killed. Skipping school. Lying. Bleeding her father dry. I turned away. Disgust rising in my throat like bile. And walked out without making a sound. Just as I turned to leave, a sharp voice cracked through the air behind me, angry, defiant, and all too familiar. "Ethan. Are you following me?" Sloane stormed across the sidewalk, chin high, eyes blazing. She wrapped herself around Jake's arm with theatrical flair, like a woman starring in her own twisted love story. "What's the matter?" she sneered, smug as ever. "Seeing me with someone else suddenly got you jealous?" Then her smile turned razor sharp. "Let me spell it out for you, I never liked you. Not even a little. I only ever loved Jake. I chased you to mess with you. That's it. You were just, easy." She glanced up at Jake with faux affection, resting her head on his shoulder like a victorious queen. I stared at her, at them, then let out a dry, humorless laugh. Unbelievable. There wasn't a hint of shame in her. Not an ounce of dignity. Jake stepped forward, eyes dark with hostility, jabbing a finger toward my face. "Keep your damn mouth shut," he growled. "If you so much as whisper what you saw today, you're done. You hear me?" I smacked his hand away. "Get your hands off me," I said coldly. "Both of you, stay the hell out of my way." I looked at them, Sloane with her plaster-cast arm and smug grin, Jake with his hollow threats and empty swagger, and suddenly, it all felt so small. I'd lived through this once before. This time, I knew better. Sloane and Jake weren't just a toxic couple, they were the same person in different disguises. Manipulative. Selfish. Addicted to games. Let them rot in each other's mess. Everyone walks their own path. And the road they were heading down? That was their problem now. I turned without another word. And walked away. But it didn't end there. After that encounter, Sloane started showing up again. Waiting for me after school. Sending me a barrage of angry texts and voicemails, some threats, some curses, all manic. "If you tell anyone what you saw, you'll regret it. You have no idea who you're messing with. I swear, Ethan, I'll ruin you." I barely looked at her messages. I didn't respond. What could she take from me now? I'd already lived through betrayal, humiliation, and heartbreak. This time around, I wasn't the same kid who could be baited or broken. She was just noise now. A detour I had finally outgrown. But one afternoon, she physically blocked my path on the way out of school, her cast still clumsy around her arm, her voice louder and more venomous than ever. "Are you deaf?" she shouted. "I said you're not allowed to talk about me and Jake. You hear me, Ethan? You don't say a word." I stopped. Looked her over. Her posture was defiant, but her eyes were wild, desperate. I raised an eyebrow. "Your arm's still broken," I said flatly. "And you're out here threatening people?" She stomped her foot, face flushed red. "You don't get it. Even if I end up crippled, Jake will still love me." She crossed her arms over her chest, standing tall, like that declaration proved something. But all I saw was a girl unraveling in real time. And all I felt was, nothing. That's when I noticed something strange. Sloane's cast was gone. No sling, no brace, no wrap. Her arm moved freely, without hesitation or pain. There's no way a real fracture could have healed that fast. Which meant only one thing. She was never hurt. The hospital, the broken arm, the dramatic phone call, it was all a lie. A performance to squeeze sympathy, manipulate her father, and fund her secret getaways with Jake. My stomach turned. I shook my head in disbelief, then muttered under my breath, "God. That's disgusting." At this point, Sloane's threats were just noise to me. Empty tantrums. Like a clown trying to act scary. Whatever pity I might have once felt for her had long evaporated. A few days later, something else lifted my mood entirely. Our SAT practice results came back. I nearly hit a perfect score. Elena wasn't far behind. We'd both landed in the top 10 of the entire senior class, scores strong enough to unlock nearly any top-tier university in the country. During break, we sat by the windows in the common room, flipping through the glossy college application guides, circling schools we liked. "New York's tempting," Elena said, tracing the skyline photo on one of the pages. "But California's weather." "Stanford has a great psych department," I offered. "But Yale's closer to my uncle's place if we ever need support." We were dreaming out loud. And for the first time, it all felt real. Then Eric burst into the room. Our class rep, always running late and panting like he'd sprinted across campus. "Guys," he gasped. "Big news." Now, in high school, big news usually meant someone got caught cheating, someone else started dating, or a fight broke out in the parking lot. Nothing that required much attention. I barely looked up. "Elena," I said, pointing at a university page, "what do you think of Boston?" But the rest of the class perked up immediately. "Don't stall, Eric," one girl hissed. "Spit it out before next period starts." Eric paused, clearly enjoying the attention. Then, in a hushed, urgent whisper. "I was just in the faculty office, dropping off those admin forms, and I overheard something huge." He leaned in closer. "It's Sloane. She's pregnant." The room exploded. Chairs scraped. Gasps filled the air. Someone actually dropped their phone. "No freaking way," a guy whispered. "You're kidding," said another. "She's pregnant?" "Like, really?" Eric nodded, solemn. "I swear." She and her dad were in the counselor's office. Yelling. Crying. The whole hallway could hear it. Everyone lost it. "Oh my God," someone said, stunned. "Sloane? Miss Runway Walk, perfect hair, too good for everyone Sloane." "The same Sloane who acted like touching her was a crime," another girl muttered. "And she's been sneaking off with Jake this whole time." I exchanged a glance with Elena. Her face was calm. Composed. But her eyes? Sharp. Understanding everything. And quietly confirming the same thing I felt in my gut. Whatever mask Sloane had worn all this time, it had shattered completely. And then it happened. One guy, Ethan McClure, the class clown, not me, suddenly let out a crooked laugh and looked over at me with a raised eyebrow. "So, how do we know it's Jake's kid?" he said, voice dripping with fake innocence. "Didn't Sloane practically throw herself at Ethan before?" Another chimed in, grinning like it was comedy night. "Seriously, man, don't play dumb. She was obsessed with you. The whole class saw it. You might want to double-check that DNA test when it comes." A wave of snickers rolled across the room like a slow, ugly tide. I didn't flinch. I gave them a flat, icy stare. "When did you all get so good at running your mouths without thinking?" That shut most of them up. A few glanced away. One or two coughed awkwardly. But Eric, the one who'd started the whole circus, wasn't done yet. He scratched his nose and leaned in with a smirk. "Hey, man, even if it was yours, no shame in that. Sloane's the school's it girl, right? Most guys here would kill for a night with her. Guess you just got lucky." I cocked my head and gave him a slow, mocking smile. "No, Eric. Sounds like you're the one dreaming about it." His face darkened. And just then, Elena stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She just walked over, calm and clear-eyed, and gently took my hand in hers. Her grip was warm. Steady. "That's enough," she said, her voice quiet but resolute. "Ethan's not that kind of person. I know who he is. And I trust him." The room froze for a second. And so did I. Her hand in mine, her words, it hit me deeper than anything else had that day. In that moment, I made myself a silent promise. Whatever happens next, whatever storms come our way, I won't let Elena down. Not ever. Just then, the door to the classroom banged open. Mr. Holloway, our student affairs director, stood there with a thunderous scowl, eyes sweeping the room until they landed on me. "Ethan Rivers," he barked. The entire class fell instantly silent. Even the jokers and hecklers went still, eyes darting between me and him, like they were waiting for a public hanging. I gave Elena's hand one last gentle squeeze and stood up, brushing the front of my hoodie. She looked worried. I gave her a nod, "It's okay," before walking toward the door. Mr. Holloway stepped aside without a word, then turned sharply and started walking. I followed. He didn't look at me. Didn't explain. Just kept walking with that stiff, clipped pace, until we were a few steps from his office. Then he stopped. Whirled around. "You're Ethan Rivers," he snapped. I nodded. "Yes, sir. You know, as a student, your only job is to focus on school. Get into a decent college. Build a future." He jabbed a finger in my direction. "And here you are, already making a mess of your life. You think the world's gonna cut you slack just because you're young?" I blinked. What? What the hell was this about? I hadn't done anything. Not that he knew of. Not officially, anyway. But I didn't protest. Not yet. Something told me it wouldn't help. So I bit my tongue, lowered my gaze slightly, and walked behind him into the office. And waited to find out just how deep this rabbit hole was about to go. The moment I stepped into the office, the world tilted sideways. Sloane was already there, with her father, Frank Miller, towering beside her like a man seconds away from exploding. My parents were standing across from them, clearly blindsided and fumbling for the right words. My mom looked like she was trying to breathe underwater. My dad, rigid, unreadable, stood stiff with his hands clenched tight. Two of the counselors stood nearby, their faces grim. And as their eyes landed on me, the air in the room seemed to thicken. Sloane had clearly been crying. Her eyes were bloodshot, her cheeks streaked with fresh tears. She looked every bit the fragile, broken girl, the picture of innocence bruised by betrayal. But I didn't even have time to process that image. Frank came charging across the room like a bull unleashed. His shout was thunder. "You think straight A's make you a good kid, huh? You think being some model student gives you the right to ruin my daughter's life?" He slammed both hands into my chest, knocking me clean off my feet. Before I could scramble up, he was on me, grabbing my collar and hurling a fist straight into my jaw. "You son of a bitch," he roared. "You got her pregnant. You ruined her." I tasted blood. My ears rang. The room spun. But then Mr. Holloway and two other teachers rushed in, dragging Frank off me before he could throw another punch. My mom, Grace, rushed to my side, pale and shaking. She tried to shield me even as she bowed her head toward the Millers. "There's got to be some mistake," she said breathlessly. "Frank, please, Ethan would never do something like this. I know my son." But that only made him angrier. He slapped his own face with both palms, trembling with rage. "A mistake," he bellowed. "You think I'd invent a story like this and throw my daughter's name into the gutter just for fun?" My dad, Robert, stepped forward, face hard as stone. His voice was quiet, but cold as steel. "Ethan," he said. "Start talking. Now. What the hell is going on?" I turned to Sloane. She stood a few feet away, arms wrapped around herself, lip trembling. But her eyes weren't scared. They were sharp. Triumphant. And when she saw me looking, she gave me the faintest smirk. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a performance. A setup. Sloane wasn't here because she was hurt. She was here to hurt me, to paint me as the villain in her little drama, to ruin my name, destroy my relationship with Elena, and throw a bomb into everything I'd built. And Jake? Yeah, he was probably waiting just outside, enjoying every second. This wasn't about love. Or heartbreak. Or even revenge. This was power. Sloane wanted to show me she could destroy everything with a single tear and one well-timed lie. But I'd already lived one lifetime. And this time, I wasn't going down easy. I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth, tasting copper and shame, and quietly said, "I didn't do it." Frank Miller's face twisted like something inside him had snapped. "You little liar," he roared, jabbing a finger toward my face. "My daughter came in here and looked us all in the eye. And you still dare deny it?" His voice cracked with fury. He looked around the room like he was gathering an audience for his outrage. "I'm gonna make sure everyone sees you for who you really are, a two-faced coward hiding behind good grades." He raised his phone, clearly intending to snap photos of me, like some criminal caught in the act. My mom, Grace, rushed between us. "Mr. Miller, please, there's no need for that. Let's not jump to conclusions here, not yet." But Frank exploded. "Jump to conclusions?" he screamed. "You think my daughter would lie about something like this? You think she'd drag her name through the mud just to frame your precious boy?" He fumbled inside his coat, his hands trembling, and pulled out a thick stack of paperwork. With a dramatic flourish, he tossed it at my feet. "You want proof? There, hospital records. We were at the clinic this morning. What, you think Sloane has the power to bribe doctors now too?" My dad, Robert, bent down slowly, picked up the documents. His eyes flicked across the pages, scanning lab results and printed names. His face hardened. And then Sloane's voice pierced the room. She was sobbing now, loud, guttural cries that filled every corner. Ethan, he invited me to that party," she choked out, said it was to study. "But when I got there, he just kept pouring drinks, and I didn't even realize when I passed out, he took advantage of me. Her words rang out like gunshots. Outside the office, we could hear the sounds of footsteps gathering, murmurs, whispers, then full voices. I turned my head slightly. Through the small rectangular window in the door, I saw faces. Students. Classmates. Peeking in, eyes wide, phones already in hand, thirsty for drama. She's telling the truth. Sloane wouldn't lie about something like this. Didn't she chase Ethan for weeks? I guess he acted all noble and cold, but look at him now. I knew something was off about that kid. Always too quiet, too perfect. Total predator vibe. I don't care how smart he is, guys like that always crash hard when the mask falls off. I didn't say a word. I didn't even blink. Sloane, still fake crying, stole a smug glance my way, like she was winning. Like she knew the school, the students, and maybe even the adults in that room were already tipping in her favor. And she wasn't wrong. Because in America, in high school, in the public eye, truth doesn't travel faster than a good scandal. But what she forgot, what she'd always underestimated, was that I wasn't the same Ethan she once toyed with. Not anymore. Sloane's tears streamed freely down her cheeks as she wailed in front of the room like an actress in the final act. Ethan. If you never liked me, then why did you let me chase after you like a fool, she sobbed, her voice cracking. You used me. You pretended to reject me just to feed your own ego, and now that things have blown up, you're tossing me aside like trash. Her voice grew shriller with every word. You did this, and now you won't even admit it. I thought you were different. I thought you were kind. But you're just like all the others. I was wrong about you. So wrong. Her cries echoed against the walls. And then, I saw it. A flicker of smugness. A curl of satisfaction tugging at the corner of her lips when she glanced at my mother. Grace. She stood there frozen, her hand trembling in mine, eyes red and watery. She looked at me, not with doubt, but with fear. Softly, barely audible, she asked. Son, if it was you, please just tell the truth. The air felt like it cracked. But I didn't flinch. I met Sloane's eyes and spoke with quiet precision. If you want a confession, bring evidence. I paused just long enough to let it sink in, then added. Better yet, let's call the police. Let them pull the footage. We'll see exactly who was with Sloane those nights. Let's find out the truth, together. The room went still. Sloane froze. Her face turned pale. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but nothing came out. She hadn't expected that. She thought words would be enough. That crying hard enough, playing the victim well enough, would drown out any need for facts. But I wasn't the same naive kid she'd fooled in a past life. Not anymore. Back then, she and Jake played me like a puppet, lied, gaslit, humiliated. But now, with this second chance, I wasn't going to let them write my story again. I saw it, the panic in her eyes. She was unraveling. Even Frank saw it. His jaw tightened. He took a breath, slow and sharp, and stared directly at his daughter. Sloane. Tell me the truth. Now. Her shoulders trembled. She gripped the hem of her sweater, knuckles white, eyes darting between her father and me. Then, finally, barely above a whisper. It's Jake's. A silence heavier than before descended. Frank's expression collapsed. The fury melted into something far worse, heartbreak. He staggered back a step, blinking like he couldn't quite believe what he'd just heard. It was the look of a father who'd built his world on lies, and just watched it come crashing down. Not long after, Jake's mother arrived, Linda Mercer. She waltzed into the office like she owned the place, all smiles and fake warmth, and headed straight for Sloane. Oh, sweetheart, she cooed, clutching Sloane's hand as if they were already family. "Now that there's a baby on the way, let's not waste any time. Pick a date soon, we'll get the wedding done before the bump starts showing. It's better to make it official before the gossip spreads." Frank blinked, stunned. His voice cracked with disbelief. "Wedding? We called you here to deal with a mess, not to throw confetti over it." But Linda just waved her hand dismissively, her smile never faltering. "Oh, Frank, don't be dramatic. I came here to solve things. Your daughter's pregnant, we'll accept the baby, no problem. She can drop out of school and marry Jake. Become a homemaker, like girls are meant to. Forget the SATs, forget college. A girl's real future is her home, her husband, her family. So what if it's a little early?" I watched as Frank's face turned beet red. He looked like he was about to explode. You're insane," he spat. "Absolutely not. Over my dead body." Linda's sweet tone vanished. She crossed her arms and sneered, "Well, excuse me for being honest. Don't act like your family's any better. If you'd raised your daughter right, she wouldn't be in this mess. Grades dropping, running wild, where were you then, huh? Don't get all self-righteous now just because the consequences finally showed up." Smack. Frank slammed his palm against the desk with a thunderous crack. Linda flinched. Then her face twisted in fury. She threw a hand to her cheek, as if he'd struck her, and screamed at the top of her lungs. "Oh my God! What kind of family is this? Your daughter screws up, we step in to take responsibility, and you try to hit me? I'm calling the cops. All of you, you're done." Frank didn't respond. He just slumped into the nearest chair, panting hard, his chest rising and falling like he'd run a marathon. It was chaos. Everyone shouting. Accusing. Exploding. And me? I just stood there. Watching. Emotionless. Detached. The chaos wasn't mine anymore. "Sloane, you made this bed. You and Jake. And now, you can both lie in it. I'm done playing your game. Let's see how you clean up your own mess." And then, right on cue, the last piece of this circus walked through the door. Jake. He marched in like some budget Romeo, grabbed Sloane's hand with theatrical determination, and declared. "Everyone just stop. I'll marry her. I'll marry Sloane. I want to." Sloane's eyes filled with tears, shimmering, grateful, triumphant. She looked like she was about to throw herself into his arms. Slap. Frank stepped forward and knocked Jake flat with a single blow. "You son of a, how dare you touch my daughter?" Jake's mother, Linda Mercer, shrieked and lunged. She clawed at Frank's face, drawing red welts down his cheek. "You can't hit my son. Who the hell do you think you are?" Sloane threw herself in front of Jake, shielding him like he was some wounded war hero. "Dad, stop," she screamed, tears streaking her cheeks. "This is my life. Can't you just stay out of it?" "And what exactly did I say that wasn't true?" Linda snapped, arms crossed, her voice laced with venom. "She's getting married. Big deal. It just happened sooner than planned." Frank stood frozen. His arms still halfway in the air. But the fire in his eyes was gone, replaced by something colder. Older. Something like heartbreak. "You're still a child," he whispered. "You've got your whole life ahead of you. College. Dreams. Everything. Are you really telling me you're not going to regret this?" Sloane's chin trembled, but she lifted it, defiant. "I won't. I want Jake. I'll never regret this." And just like that, Frank broke. He covered his face with both hands and began to sob, silent, shaking, uncontrollably. His knees buckled, and it was Mr. Bennett, the guidance counselor, who caught him just before he hit the floor. I couldn't take any more of this farce. I turned on my heel and walked out. No wonder Jake resorted to lies and traps to take me down. He was raised by a mother who screamed and scratched like a child throwing a tantrum. Of course he thought manipulation was normal. And Sloane? If she really went through with this marriage, she just signed her life away. She and Jake ran off together. Eloped. Honestly, I saw it coming from miles away. Sloane had always been the kind of girl who had to win. From the moment Jake sicked her on me, when she threw herself into the act, when she smeared her own reputation just to ruin mine, I knew what kind of person she was. She mistook rebellion for independence. The more her parents tried to stop her, the more she clung to Jake, like they were some star-crossed pair meant to defy the world. Like love could rewrite reality. That afternoon, I went back to class. Sat down beside Elena. Pulled out my books. Kept studying. Sloane never came back to school after that. She dropped out. Sometimes, I'd catch a glimpse of Sloane's father outside the school gates. His hair had gone completely gray. His face, once stern and commanding, now looked sunken and exhausted, like he'd aged 20 years in just a few months. One afternoon, I saw him grabbing Sloane by the wrist, desperately trying to pull her into his car. She was wearing a baggy white t-shirt that couldn't quite hide her rounded belly. Flat shoes. No makeup. Her long, flowing hair was gone, cut short in a messy, practical bob. This wasn't the radiant Sloane that used to turn heads in the hallway. Now, she could have walked past her classmates and no one would even notice. "Let go of me," she screamed. "Help. Someone call the cops, he's trying to rob me." I froze. Did she just call her own father a mugger? Frank's voice cracked as he shouted back, torn between fury and heartbreak. "Sloane. Stop this madness, just come home. Please. Jake is no good, can't you see that? His mother's a walking disaster, loud, manipulative, impossible to live with. Is that the life you want?" But Sloane stomped her foot and screamed, her voice shrill and defiant. "So what? I'm not marrying his mother, I'm marrying him. Jake loves me, okay? He's always loved me. I don't care what you think, I don't need you meddling in my life anymore." I stood across the street, watching all of this unfold. And I'll admit, I was stunned. The venom in her words. The utter disrespect. It was like Frank wasn't her father at all, but some enemy trying to destroy her perfect little fantasy. She swore at him. Screamed in his face. And I just stood there, silent. I wasn't even angry. Just tired. Because I knew exactly where this was going. Jake was just like his mother. Selfish. Entitled. Always playing the hero in his own story, while everyone else had to clean up the mess afterward. Right now, he thought he was being noble, sacrificing everything for love. But that illusion would shatter soon enough. I turned to walk away. And then I heard it. Ugh. A pained groan. A heavy thud. Frank had collapsed to the ground. Sloane had shoved him, shoved her own father, and taken off running down the sidewalk. Before I could even process it, she saw me. Came right at me. Face red, chest heaving, eyes wild. "You bastard," she screamed. "This is all your fault. If you'd just admitted it that day, if you'd just gone along with it, none of this would have happened. Jake and I wouldn't be stuck in this mess. Now everyone's against us and you're just standing there like you won. You selfish, heartless prick." She pointed a trembling finger at my face, cursing me like I'd ruined her entire life. But I just looked at her. Still. Silent. Not even blinking. Because I wasn't looking at the girl I used to know. I was looking at her future. At the woman she was becoming. And in that moment, Sloane looked exactly like Linda Mercer, Jake's mother. And it hit me, like the punchline of a joke I never wanted to hear. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I looked at her calmly, indifferent, and shook my head. Whatever happens between you and Jake, it has nothing to do with me. Sloane's face turned pale, then flushed with rage. She sneered and jabbed a finger at me. Fine. Just remember you said that. She spun around and stormed off, shoulders stiff with anger. I didn't stop her. Didn't say a word. Everything she was going through, she brought it on herself. If this was the path she insisted on walking, then let her feel the consequences in full. Sloane vanished from school after that day. But her name didn't. The rumors lingered like smoke after a fire. Whispers in the hallway. Glances exchanged in the library. Some pitied her. Others mocked her. Most just gossiped. Eventually, I heard she'd packed up everything she owned and ran off with Jake. They eloped. That word used to sound romantic once, like something out of a fairy tale. Two teenagers, young and reckless, believing that love alone could shield them from the world. But that's the thing about fairy tales, they end at the kiss. Real life comes after. And reality doesn't play nice. The more naive they were now, the harder life would slap them later. Sloane had abandoned everything for Jake. Even her own father. And that kind of love? That kind of blind, all-consuming obsession? It terrified me. Frank finally gave up. Heartbroken, he stopped searching for his daughter, sold the house, and moved away from the city entirely. Gone, like he was erasing everything that had ever reminded him of her. The school quietly removed all records of Jake and Sloane. No photos. No transcripts. It was like they had never existed. And just like that, peace returned. With them out of the picture, Elena and I could finally breathe. We spent our days buried in books, tucked away in the corners of the library, working toward the one goal we had always shared. The SATs came and went. And then, one crisp spring morning, 2 identical envelopes arrived, one for her, one for me. Harvard. Same department. Same dream. We got in. To help our families out, we both started working part-time, weekends at a local cafe, summers assisting around campus. We saved up every dollar we could. Add in some well-earned scholarships, and for the first time in our lives, money wasn't tight. So we made a plan. One trip. Just the 2 of us. A short escape before college began, a reward, a fresh start, a celebration. I booked a dinner reservation at a nice little restaurant. Elena looked radiant across the table, glowing in the candlelight. We clinked glasses, smiled, and ordered dessert. On the wall-mounted TV, a news segment was looping. Something about a jewelry store robbery. Police were offering a reward for information. I glanced up. And there he was. The face I could never quite forget. Jake. His mugshot flashed across the screen. So that's what it came to, huh? After running away with Sloane, after burning every bridge they had, he ended up here. A petty thief on the evening news. I didn't say a word. Just stared at the screen. Somewhere out there, Sloane was probably still clinging to the fantasy. Still believing they were Romeo and Juliet. But the truth was far less poetic. They weren't star-crossed lovers. They were just 2 foolish kids who ran from reality, only to crash straight into it. 4 years later. 4 years had passed. Elena and I were planning our wedding. We had built a company together from the ground up. Now, it was worth over $100 million. Titans of industry lined up to partner with us, some practically begging for a seat at our table. The moment our plane touched down, messages flooded in, top executives offering help, asking if there was anything we needed. Anything at all. I smiled politely and thanked them, then reached for Elena's hand. The woman beside me was no longer the quiet girl who used to shrink away from confrontation in high school. She had transformed. Now, she was a goddess in the business world, admired, respected, untouchable. Her makeup was flawless. Her presence, magnetic. She spoke with confidence, moved with grace, and smiled like she owned the room. She turned heads wherever she went, not because she tried to, but because she couldn't help it. As we walked through the airport together, hand in hand, she glanced at me with a flicker of nervousness in her eyes. "I'm a little nervous," she murmured. "Do you think Robert and Grace will like me?" I chuckled, pulled her gently into my side, and whispered in her ear, "They already love you. They've been pressuring me for years to make sure I marry you. This isn't news to them, it's their dream coming true." Her cheeks flushed pink, and she looked at me with the kind of soft, bashful smile that could melt steel. We stepped outside, bathed in sunlight and laughter, ready to start the next chapter of our lives. And that's when we saw her. A woman, kneeling at the curb near the terminal entrance. She was dressed in tattered clothes so faded they'd turned gray, her hair matted and tangled into knots. A tin bowl rattled in front of her as she rocked back and forth, her voice hoarse. "Please, please help us. My child needs surgery. Please, help us." I glanced down at the cardboard sign next to the bowl. "My son has congenital heart disease. The operation costs $180,000. We can't afford it. Please help." Her voice. It struck a chord somewhere deep in my memory. Familiar. Too familiar. I hesitated, one hand still in my jacket pocket, fingers brushing my wallet. Something in me, curiosity, instinct, made me look again. She was gaunt. Her cheeks hollow. Her eyes sunken. Her frame was so thin, it seemed like a strong gust of wind could knock her over. Her skin was pale and sallow, the color of someone who hadn't eaten properly in weeks, maybe months. In her arms was a child, no older than 4. The boy stared at me, not with the innocent curiosity of a child, but with something sharper. Hungrier. His wide, dark eyes were locked onto my wallet. There was something unsettling about it. Something that made my stomach turn. Something wrong. I didn't know why yet. But I felt it in my bones. And that voice. That raspy, desperate voice. Somewhere in the back of my mind, an alarm was ringing. I pulled out 2 bills and bent down to drop them into the rusted tin bowl. Thank you so much, kind sir," the woman rasped, her voice hoarse with exhaustion and humiliation. But halfway through her words, she looked up, and our eyes met. I froze. It was Sloane. Her eyes, though dulled and weary, were unmistakable. Crow's feet etched the corners of her eyes, and deep lines ran along her face, far beyond her age. She was only 24, maybe 25 at most. But standing here like this, she looked 40. Maybe older. Her entire appearance told a story of hardship, of regret, of a reckless choice that had long since turned into a living nightmare. The romance, the rebellion, the fantasy of a life built on nothing but emotion, it had all shattered. She and Jake had eloped without a cent to their names, no diploma, no skills, no plan. Just heat and hope. And when the baby came, all that was left was the crushing weight of reality. Bills. Rent. Empty cupboards. No job. No way out. Even the most passionate love couldn't survive that kind of grind. I had once hated Sloane and Jake. Hated the way they used me, manipulated me. But that hatred had long faded. This time around, I had rebuilt my life, better, stronger, freer. Everything I'd lost, I had regained. And more. So standing here now, Looking at her as she crouched in rags on the pavement, I felt no glee, no satisfaction. Just stillness. I drew in a slow breath and asked quietly, "How did it come to this?" Sloane's eyes widened. Panic surged in them like a wave crashing against rocks. She jerked upright, grabbing at her things with shaking hands. "Why, you've got the wrong person. I don't know you. Please move," she stammered. She tried to shove past me. But before she could gather everything, the child in her arms, her son, maybe 4 years old, suddenly leapt up, snatching the bills right out of my hand. Then he lunged for my wallet. "Hey!" I started. "Stop it!" Sloane snapped, her voice sharp and cold. She seized the boy by the arm, yanked him close, and took off running. But just as she turned to leave, Sloane's footsteps suddenly froze. I followed her gaze, confused, and saw it too. Across the street, under the neon glow of a seedy downtown bar, stood Jake. Dressed in trendy streetwear, hair styled, sneakers spotless. His arm draped intimately around a woman in a tight dress, heels too high, makeup too thick. The two were laughing, flirting, completely absorbed in each other. "Jake! You worthless piece of trash!" Sloane's voice cracked like a whip. Her eyes flared red, and before I could react, she lunged across the street like a woman possessed. Grabbing Jake's arm, she clung to it with desperation, her other hand shaking as she pointed at him, voice choked with rage and grief. "You disappeared the moment we found out our son was sick," she screamed. "You just vanished, like we meant nothing to you." Tears streamed down her face, her voice breaking. "You don't even care if your son lives or dies. You're out here partying and cheating while I'm begging on the street? How can you be so damn heartless, Jake?" Jake recoiled in disgust, yanking his arm free and shoving her hard to the ground. The woman beside him giggled, unfazed. Jake glared down at Sloane with nothing but contempt. "Get lost already. That kid of yours, who knows if he's even mine?" His voice was loud, brutal. He jabbed a finger toward her. "You were all cozy with that Ethan guy back in school, remember? Maybe the brat is his. I'm done with you. Go cry to someone else." His words dripped venom. He didn't just reject her, he crushed her. Elena and I stood frozen nearby, stunned into silence. Even knowing Jake's character from the past, his cruelty now felt colder than we imagined. Sloane sat crumpled on the pavement, shoulders shaking violently, her sobs echoing down the street. "He's your son," she wailed. "If you don't believe me, we can do a paternity test. Please, Jake." But Jake just spat beside her, sneering. "Look at you," he scoffed. "You're pathetic. You look like a damn ghost. Why would I ever go back to that? I'm done." He slung his arm tighter around the new woman and walked away without a backward glance. "Jake! Daddy," the child called out, stumbling after him. The boy managed to grab the edge of Jake's jacket, but Jake shoved him aside, sending the kid sprawling. Without so much as a pause, he vanished down the block. Sloane dropped to her knees like a madwoman, cradling her son's unconscious body in her arms, screaming in sheer panic. "Someone help. Please, help my child." Her cries were raw, echoing through the street like a warning siren. Elena clutched my arm, voice trembling. "Ethan, we can't just leave him like this. Please. Let's take them to the hospital." I hesitated for a beat, then nodded. We rushed them to the emergency room. I paid for everything, up front. No hesitation. The child was placed in a VIP pediatric unit, hooked up to machines, surrounded by warmth and care. Sloane finally exhaled, her trembling shoulders relaxing for the first time. Her eyes brimmed with tears of relief. She turned to Elena first, her voice cracking with emotion. Thank you so much. You didn't have to do this. Then she faced me. Ethan. I'm sorry. I truly am. What I did back then, it was wrong. Thank you for helping us. You didn't have to, but you did. Elena gave a soft, kind smile, gently shaking her head. It's okay. As long as your son is safe, that's what matters. Sloane looked at her, eyes full of regret and a grief too deep for words. If I hadn't run off with Jake back then, she whispered, maybe today I'd be like you, beautiful, confident, respected. Once upon a time, Sloane had been the school's golden girl. Untouchable. Admired. And now, standing next to Elena, once the shy, soft-spoken outcast, the contrast was painfully poetic. It was like the universe had reversed their roles just to prove a point. Sloane hadn't bought a new piece of clothing in years. Her coat was threadbare, sleeves frayed. Her shoes were scuffed and too thin for the weather. She wiped her eyes and looked at me again. This time, the hope in her voice was fragile, desperate. Ethan, can you help me find my dad? I've tried calling him, his number's disconnected. I even went back to the house, but it's sold. I have nowhere else to turn. I hesitated. Then told her the truth. Frank left. He moved to a different city. Got remarried. He has a new family now, a son. Sloane stared at me like I'd just shot her in the chest. No, that's not possible, she murmured, shaking her head in disbelief. He wouldn't just abandon me. He wouldn't. Elena and I exchanged a glance, silent. But deep down, we both knew, Sloane's father had given up long ago. Frank had been sick for years. When Sloane ran off, she didn't just leave him behind, she left him broken. She never looked back. And eventually, neither did he. Now, watching her sob uncontrollably in that sterile hospital hallway, begging for the chance to undo what she'd done, I felt no anger. Only clarity. Some mistakes don't come with second chances. She'd made her choice, all those years ago. Chosen Jake. Chosen rebellion. Chosen to burn every bridge she'd ever known. And choices have consequences. It wasn't until later, when Sloane finally opened up to us, that I learned what she had really been through all these years. After she and Jake ran off to Miami, the fantasy fell apart almost instantly. Jake hadn't brought nearly enough money to support them. He refused to work, too proud, or too lazy, to get a job. When the money ran out, he broke into a jewelry store. He didn't make it far. Within weeks, he was arrested and locked up. Jake's mother, Linda, wanted nothing to do with the mess. She blamed him for embarrassing the family name and refused to even visit him in jail. She cut him off completely. Sloane, barely scraping by, had no one else. Pregnant, alone, and broke, she had to go through prenatal checkups by herself. She was living day to day on scraps, barely surviving. And then came the final blow. After her baby was born, the doctors told her he had a congenital heart defect. Surgery wasn't an option yet, the baby was too small, too fragile. They'd have to wait. Just when she thought things couldn't get worse, Jake was released from jail. But when he learned about the baby's condition, he vanished. Disappeared without a word. No support, no goodbye. Sloane, still just a child herself in so many ways, couldn't find stable work. No one would hire her. She was young, unskilled, and had a sick baby strapped to her chest. In the end, she did the only thing she could think of, she took to the streets to beg. She could barely finish the story. Her voice broke, and the words spilled out between sobs. Her tears fell fast, hot, and silent at first, then came the uncontrollable, shuddering weeping. He and that venomous mother of his, they're the same kind of people, she choked out. I should have listened to you back then. God, I was so stupid. She wiped her face, still crying. He drinks. All the time. And when he gets drunk, he hits me. Not just once. Over and over. That man's not human, he's a monster. He belongs in hell. I stood there, speechless. There was nothing I could say to fix any of this. So instead, I went to a nearby deli, bought her a warm meal, and handed it to her. Eat first, I said softly. Everything else, we'll figure out later. She took the food in shaking hands, murmuring thank yous through her tears, eating between sobs, letting the quiet warmth of dinner calm her, even just a little. I watched for a moment, then turned to Elena. We walked away slowly, hand in hand. Because the truth is, not everyone gets a second chance. Not everyone gets to undo the mistakes they made in youth. I was lucky. I got to rewrite my story. Sloane? She had to live in hers. Elena had always been a kind-hearted girl. The moment she learned how hard things had been for Sloane and her child, she couldn't look the other way. Ever since that day at the hospital, she'd been quietly helping them however she could, bringing food, checking in, covering what expenses she could manage. Most of all, she showed up. I watched her walk in and out of the hospital room, her arms filled with bags of formula, supplements, baby wipes, children's books. Each time, Sloane would thank her. At first. But little by little, that gratitude began to fade. Then it disappeared. Soon, Sloane started calling Elena often, too often, with lists of things she needed. Diapers. Baby clothes. A specific kind of medicine. More snacks. A humidifier. Elena never said no. She'd smile, nod, and add it to her to-do list. It didn't matter if it was inconvenient. If it cost more than she could spare. She always made it happen. But I couldn't help feeling uneasy. It was subtle, but I could see it. Sloane had started taking Elena's kindness for granted. One night, I finally brought it up. Maybe it's time to pull back a little, I said gently. You've done more than enough. But Elena shook her head. That child is still so young. If I don't help, who will? I don't have it in me to walk away. I didn't push her. I knew that tone in her voice, it came from a place of quiet conviction. So I stepped in, too. Helped carry groceries. Sat with the baby. Cleaned up messes that weren't ours. We kept going, day after day, until one afternoon, something shifted. I was dropping off lunch for Sloane when she suddenly gasped, eyes wide in disbelief. She pointed to her phone, where an article was open, then looked up at me. Wait a minute, she said. You're the CEO of Heart Coal Group. You're that billionaire entrepreneur. I blinked. What are you talking about? She shoved the phone in my face. There it was, an article about me, complete with a photo and a headline that screamed numbers. Her expression lit up, eager, breathless, borderline desperate. Can I work at your company? She blurted out, grabbing my wrist with both hands. Please, Ethan. You have no idea what this would mean to me. I hesitated. For a moment, I debated telling her the truth. That Heart Coal wasn't just some startup. It was one of the top-tier corporations in all of New York, co-founded by Elena and me. Every year, thousands of Ivy League graduates fought tooth and nail just to land an internship. Even janitorial and security staff underwent background checks and language assessments. And Sloane? She'd dropped out of high school before graduation. She'd never gone back. Never earned a GED. No formal qualifications, no resume, no work history, just a string of hard lessons life had beaten into her. If I handed her a client proposal or a quarterly report, I wasn't even sure she'd understand what the first paragraph was saying. But I didn't have the heart to tell her all that. So I gave her a vague smile and said, let's talk about it once your son's feeling better. She smiled back, hopeful. And for a moment, I wished I lived in a world where hope was enough. I thought the worst was over. I thought, maybe, just maybe, we could all go our separate ways, quietly. But I underestimated Sloane. She wasn't done yet. Shortly after that incident, she started dressing up again, digging out old dresses from the back of her closet. But the clothes didn't fit her the way they used to. What once looked youthful now looked forced, tight where they shouldn't be, sagging where they used to hug. Still, she wore them with forced confidence. Then came the makeup. The perfume. The too long glances. And the accidental touches. One afternoon, as I handed her a water bottle, she stumbled. Or pretended to. I caught her by the arm just in time, but instead of finding her balance, she collapsed against me, melting into my chest like she belonged there. Her eyes looked up at mine, wide and shining. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice soft as syrup. "I've always had feelings for you. You just never gave me the time of day. I only got with Jake to spite you, you know that, right? I was angry. I wanted you to notice me." She smiled weakly, reaching for my tie. Her hand trembled. "But you came back. You helped me, even after everything I did. Maybe this, maybe us, was meant to be. Maybe this is fate giving us another chance. I'm begging you, Ethan, give me a way out. I can't keep living like this. You're the only one I've got." She pulled gently at my tie, drawing her face closer to mine. I stiffened. "Stop," I said flatly, pushing her away. But she was quick. Before I could fully step back, she yanked at my sleeve, pulling me off balance, and the next second, we both tumbled onto the couch. Then she shouted, loudly, deliberately. "Ethan, stop. Elena's going to be heartbroken." Panic jolted through me. I turned my head, and saw her. Elena. Standing quietly in the doorway, holding a warm takeout bag, steam still rising through the plastic. Her face was expressionless. My heart dropped. I scrambled to my feet. "Elena, wait, this isn't what it looks like." But Sloane clung to my wrist again, leaning her body against mine as if we were lovers caught in a moment of passion. "Ethan," she said breathily, "maybe it's time you told her the truth. I know I shouldn't have said anything, but I can't help how I feel about you. And I know you feel the same." "I don't," I snapped, pulling my arm free. "Elena, please, you have to believe me, I have nothing to do with her." Elena didn't say a word. She stepped inside slowly and set the takeout on the bedside table. She looked over at the child sleeping on the hospital bed. Then she looked back at us and said quietly, "Let's talk outside. I don't want to wake him." I clenched my jaw, shooting a glare at Sloane. And in that moment, I realized something. Helping her was a mistake. I knew who Sloane was. I'd always known. A woman like her doesn't care who she hurts. All that matters is what she can take, and who's naive enough to let her. She sauntered behind me as we stepped out of the hospital room, deliberately swinging her hips with every step. Then, facing Elena, she flashed a smug, taunting smile, the kind of smile you'd expect from a woman who thought she'd won. "Elena," she said sweetly, "I'll admit it, you're doing better than me now. But I'm Ethan's first love. And he told me, he said he still has feelings for me. That he wants to take care of me and my son. For the rest of our lives." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If you're smart, you'll step aside now, while you still have your dignity." My eyes widened in disbelief. How could she lie so easily, so boldly, so shamelessly, after all these years? "That's enough, Sloane." I snapped, pointing a finger at her. "I never said that. Not once. Why do you keep trying to stir things up between us?" Whatever thin layer of decency I had still been holding on to, shattered. She turned to me with a smirk, not the slightest bit embarrassed. Her eyes glittered with mischief, like a child who knew she wouldn't be punished. "Come on, Ethan," she said mockingly. "Don't pretend. You said it. You know you did." I was about to argue, when Elena suddenly raised a hand. "Stop." Her voice was calm, but final. My heart pounded. I turned to her, panicked that she might believe even a sliver of what Sloane said. But she didn't look at me. She walked over to Sloane slowly, and when she spoke, her voice was soft, but piercing. "Sloane," she said with a small, almost pitying smile, "after all these years, you really haven't changed one bit. I know who Ethan is. I know his heart. And I'm not foolish enough to be rattled by cheap little games like yours." Her eyes hardened. "When you try to break what we've built, what we've gone through together, you're not just insulting me. You're insulting him too." Sloane's face went blank. Her jaw clenched. Her smirk vanished. She blinked. "You really believe him that much?" she whispered. Elena met her gaze steadily. "Of course I do. We made a choice to stand by each other. That means trust. That means we hold each other up, not tear each other down." Sloane's eyes filled with tears. She stumbled back, one step, then two. Then the dam broke. Trust, holding each other up, her voice cracked into a sob. Why couldn't Jake ever believe in me like that? That night, Sloane cried harder than I had ever seen her cry. Not from shame. Not from regret. But from the crushing weight of realizing that love without trust is nothing. She kept calling the same number, her father's old number, again and again. Hoping, just once, that he might pick up. "Dad, please, it's your daughter. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I don't know what came over me back then. I wasn't myself. Please just, pick up the phone." Her voice cracked as she sobbed into the receiver, her tears soaking the front of her shirt. The desperation in her cries echoed through the hallway. But all I felt was indifference. It's not that I lacked compassion. It's just that, after everything we'd seen from Sloane lately, I honestly couldn't tell anymore which parts were real, and which were just another act. After her son's surgery, Sloane came to find us. Her eyes were red and swollen, she'd clearly been crying. She pulled a small box from her coat pocket and handed it to Elena. "This necklace," she said quietly, "I tore it off Ethan's neck on purpose back then. I wanted you two to fight. To break up. I was jealous. And I'm sorry." She didn't wait for a response. She just turned around and walked back into the hospital room, never once looking back. Elena slowly opened the box. Inside, the necklace lay quietly in its velvet bed, delicate, familiar, undamaged. She closed the lid gently, as if she were sealing away something fragile. Neither of us said a word. I didn't know if Sloane truly meant what she said. But I did know this: if life ever handed her a do-over, she'd never choose this path again. Later, Elena and I spoke to the doctor. The child's condition had stabilized. The surgery was successful. He was finally safe. That was all we needed to hear. We made arrangements to have Sloane discharged immediately. No more pity. No more tolerance. The boy would live. She didn't need to stay in our lives. Just as we were stepping out of the hospital, both our phones buzzed at once. I glanced down. It was our old high school messenger group. Notifications were blowing up, one after another. "Guys, did you hear? Jake's family is going bankrupt." "No way. Wasn't his mom running a clothing company? Always bragging about how they couldn't keep up with demand." "Yeah, and that's the problem. They cut corners, used cheap fabric. A bunch of customers had serious allergic reactions. Some even ended up in the ER. Now they're facing lawsuits. Damn. That's a full-blown scandal. More than that. I heard they defaulted on multiple loans. Jake's mom skipped town. Left a mountain of debt behind. Creditors are hunting them down as we speak. I stared at the screen as the messages kept pouring in. For a moment, I felt something shift in my chest, not joy, not revenge, just a kind of cold finality. And for some reason, a line my grandmother used to say came floating back to me. The wheel of justice grinds slow, but it never misses. Elena and I exchanged a look, but we didn't say a word. We just quietly locked our phones, slipped them back into our pockets, and walked away. I took a deep breath and gently reached for Elena's hand. She looked at me, puzzled. I gave her a soft smile. Let's go home. On the drive back, I spotted someone slumped near the curb. At first, I didn't recognize him. But then he turned, and even through the grime and bruises, I saw it was Jake. He looked shattered. The thick, confident hair he once flaunted was now patchy and thinning. His arms were covered in bruises, some fresh, some yellowing. His shirt was torn. His shoes didn't match. For a split second, his dull, bloodshot eyes met mine. "Ethan," he muttered, his voice hoarse. Then he scoffed bitterly, lips curling into something between a smirk and a snarl. "What, come to laugh at me?" I said nothing. Just stared at him, expression calm, unflinching. That silence, it did something to him. His face twisted. Rage took over. He staggered to his feet and pointed a trembling, swollen finger at me. "You think I'm done? You think I'm finished?" he screamed. "I'll be back on top, you'll see. Just wait. I'm not done yet, you smug bastard." Still, I didn't react. Didn't flinch. Just watched him. He was breathing hard now. His shoulders heaved. His eyes were wild. I gave a slight smile, my voice quiet, but steady. "Jake, the truth is, you've always treated me like some kind of rival. But I never was. You were your own worst enemy. You had chances, so many chances, to live a good life. But you threw them away." It was like I'd slapped him. He stood there, frozen, mouth slightly open, staring at me like I'd just spoken a language he couldn't understand. "No. No. That's not true. Everything fell apart because of you. You're a fake. A fraud in a nice suit." I didn't bother to argue. Instead, I reached for Elena's hand and said one last thing. "Every choice we make, carves out the road we walk. You chose bitterness, envy, shortcuts. Even now, you still can't see past your own pride. Maybe there's still time to turn around. But you've got to want it. No one can do it for you. Take care of yourself, Jake." And with that, I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard his voice break. It was no longer angry. Just broken. I really do regret it all." His sobs followed us down the street, echoing faintly in the evening air.